Episode 2 of BuckShot with Trevor and Luke. We're here every Saturday around this time talking Bucks basketball. Uh, it was a interesting week to say the least. Um, the Bucks took down the Spurs last time we talked. We had previewed that game a little bit. Beat Indiana in a game that was closer than the score turned out to be, and they lost to the Timberwolves on Wednesday. Um, Timberwolves are off to a hot start, but it's still kind of a surprising loss to see to the Timberwolves. But Trevor, I guess right away we can start with the game against the Spurs. We had mentioned on the show that Spurs aren't, they're not the mid 2000 Spurs anymore. They're still kind of rebuilding here. Dejounte Murray is their best player, not Tim Duncan or Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili anymore. But the Bucks only won by 10 points. I know it's early in the regular season, but it seems against not a great Spurs team that score should be a little higher.
Yeah, and I think you can break down every game. You can look at a couple players, but I think the big story in that one was Middleton, Grayson, and Nora not being able to get their shots to fall. In terms of from deep, I think they're combined 4 for 15, 5 for 25.
Yeah.
You expect a little progression there, and on the Spurs side of the ball, I mean, Doug McDermott looked like a throwback to his Creighton days.
Hmm.
7 for 11 from deep, 9 of 13 from the field. He's not going to drop 25 on you every day. So it's just one of those games. Obviously, you have all the injuries and a ton of stuff we're going to get into later. But to be able to escape with the win by 10 isn't exactly nothing either. It's not a blowout, but you definitely take it.
I know it's tough to kind of like judge what's going on with the team right now or whatever like that with Brooke Lopez out and Drew Holiday out. But is it a little concerning that if those shots aren't falling, the Bucks might struggle against better teams?
Yeah, I think it's a little concerning. The minutes played and everything. I think it's something we still need to see as it progresses. Obviously, Drew Holiday is still not fully back. Connaughton should not be playing 38 minutes. Granted, that's because of again injuries that we're going to get into later. But it's something to keep an eye on. But don't sound the alarm bells right now. But obviously, something to keep an eye on.
Right, and you just mentioned there, Pat playing so many minutes, kind of transitioning here into Pat's position. He started at the five, that game, I believe, against Indiana, and I know he was playing, he was matching up with Karl Anthony Towns against Minnesota, which is an interesting thing to see because obviously Pat's not a center, and he's taking on Miles Turner, Karl Anthony Towns, some of the better big guys in the NBA. So it seems like this Bucks team they want to, at least with Brooke Lopez out. Bobby Portis is still here and there. He's not going to get full minutes coming off of his injury here, but it seems kind of here and there that the Bucks want to run small. I know it's tough to put a big guy out there when you don't have guys healthy, but at some point you got to think that if we get a Joel Embiid or a Nikola Jokic soon. I mean, we have Rudy Gobert tomorrow. It might be tough down low for Pat Connaughton, and even Chris Middleton was kind of switching on to Cat there too.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Giannis isn't switching on to the five a little more. I get the allure with Connaughton. You just think that they'd move everybody up one, but you look at the results. A 2-in-1 week. The only loss is to Timberwolves. Obviously, you talk about Karl Anthony Towns. That's not a bad week.
Right, and I think this kind of comes to see where the Bucks stand without PJ Tucker. Even though PJ Tucker's small, he had mentioned that when he was guarding Kevin Durant, he's going to play physical. Durant's going to score, but PJ Tucker was one of the only guys in my mind who kind of played physical with good players. And I'm wondering, sure he's 7 inches shorter than Karl Anthony Towns, 7 inches shorter than Miles Turner, but he's at least physical enough to push these guys off the block and make them play outside in. So I do think that hurts a little bit there, and I don't think Pat or Chris Middleton's going to make that up. Maybe Thanasis, but not near what PJ Tucker was doing.
Yeah, and Thanasis, it's tough too because I actually like him. I think he's a little underrated on
Hmm.
offense too. But PJ Tucker was, for the most part, his game was he was automatic from the corner too. Like he wasn't really good outside of that, but he at least had that going for him. Where Thanasis has troubles finding his game, so it's certainly a loss on both sides of the ball. But you got to figure that as the season goes on, they'll get stronger and better at it.
Right, and that kind of brings us into the next game they played. Indiana, which Indiana was up a couple times in this game. It really came down to the last 4 minutes where the Bucks kind of pulled away 10-2 run or something to end the game, put a couple free throws in, and won by 10 points. But this game was really probably a 4-point win if you're not counting free throws at the end. Indiana is always a tough matchup. They always have that defensive mindset. They kind of play a little physical, a little scrappy, and that's what you're going to get with former Buck Malcolm Brogdon. I feel like every time he plays the Bucks, he wants to beat the shit out of them for us not giving him his max deal or whatever when he was a free agent. And Malcolm Brogdon, it showed. He had 25 points. He was producing with the ball, 7 assists. That was just a hard fought game. I don't know how much of it you watched, Trevor, but the end for sure. It was I was There's points where it was getting close. I was getting a little worried, and the offense was kind of slow at the beginning of the fourth quarter, but they kind of took over it come end of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and Malcolm Brogdon, he shot well, but he also showed why the Bucks shouldn't have given him that money with 7 turnovers.
Yeah,
Really, if we're being honest, I don't think anybody should have more than 5 unless you're playing 2K. And he had 7. He's a good player, good offensive player, great general. He was a guy on our team that helped us a lot when the offense stalled, but going back to that decision, it was obviously the great decision. But you look at this, Pacers team, and to your point, like it was close. This team has some good players on it. Like Duarte has looked fantastic this
yeah.
season. Sabonis is one of the most underrated guys in the league. Turner only played 14 minutes. I have a feeling that game would have been different if he was in more. So, Pacers, they're a team that the Bucks should be beating, but they're no step over like the Pistons.
Yeah, yeah. The Pacers, like I said, they're scrappy. They know how to play basketball. Indiana's a basketball state. They have good players. Duarte has really impressed me. I know there's a Bucks podcast, but he looks like the best rookie so far. Cade Cunningham hasn't played yet, but Jalen Green's been a little up and down. But Duarte has been solid for Indiana, kind of filling that 3 spot for him, that wing spot, and going after it. But this was a game too where Thanasis started. He kind of played that not that stretch four, but he kind of played that four big guy spot, not a true center or whatever. To me, this was kind of just an experimentation by Budenholzer. We started Pat the game before, start Thanasis, see what one of them can do to start the game. Of course, Thanasis is not going to give you a lot on the offensive side, but that defense is something else. I think I mentioned on the last show, but I said my favorite thing that in the NBA right now is Thanasis going hard for 2 minutes at the end of a quarter and then getting the turnover and instantly subbing himself out. So I don't know, Trevor. Did you like this lineup better with Thanasis taking the jump and guarding big guys, or did you like it better with Pat Connaughton?
I think I like it a little better mixture of both. I think Thanasis starting is the best, and a mixture in Connaughton because Thanasis goes so hard he's gonna get foul trouble early. It's not always the best stat, and I'm not gonna get into it. Maybe a different podcast. Plus minus.
Hmm.
Obviously there are a lot of problems with that stat, but I mean, dude was plus 12 in only 19 minutes. Hood obviously was plus 13 in 10 minutes, so that kind of tells you the stat isn't always perfect, but he's a force when he's on the court in terms of effort. 4 for 5 shooting, that's good. 5 fouls, so it's a little worrisome that he picked up 5 that quick. But when you get that effort, you kind of expect that. But if he can limit that, hell of a player.
Yeah, and just like to our conversation before, that's almost like the playing the PJ Tucker role a little bit, playing physical with guys. We know what the NBA is doing this year with the fouls and letting the guys play a little bit more. So I think Thanasis is kind of walking that line of let me play physical, and if I get a foul, I get a foul. I'm not that huge of a player that they're going to need me in the fourth quarter or anything. So as far as the season goes, I like that right away, getting Thanasis in, get his presence out there, play a little physical, maybe get a guy off their game to start. And I think that does pay dividends come the rest of game time, especially if you're getting if you're poking Miles Turner in the stomach or you're getting Cat off the block, they're not going to play well the rest of the game. So having a guy like that, I think, is invaluable to a team. But going off of that, this was the first time we saw Rodney Hood play Indiana. I think we both agreed last week that Rodney he should be a solid player. He's been a solid player in his NBA career. He just doesn't seem to stick and land anywhere. This game, he had 10 minutes, 3 points, 1 of 2 shooting. Obviously, probably getting back into the swing of things. But is this a player you're excited for that could be that seventh, eighth guy off the bench? Is he a guy who's going to come out and give you three threes a game, or what should we expect from Rodney Hood in your eyes, Trevor?
I think he's kind of a nice filler piece. I don't think he's anything else. I don't think this is what 3 years ago. I think, which is weird saying because he's only 29. Like it's not like he's super old.
Yeah,
Um, but in this team, I mean, we've talked about it. They got so many flamethrowers. They got so many good players. Obviously, we got a lot of good players that still have yet to come back. So I think he's one of those guys. I kind of envision him in a smaller role than what we envisioned Mirotic having in
yeah.
terms of just guy that you put in, gets a couple threes, gets some offense, new looks, but outside of that, nothing crazy, which for what we're paying him, that's perfectly fine.
Right, and kind of going back to what we were talking about with Chris Middleton and Pat Connaughton and Grayson Allen missing their shots. Can we generate offense? He seems like a guy who can be there to generate offense. If those three guys are missing their shots, all the eyes are going to be on Giannis, right? Him driving to the lane, him getting fouls. It seems fairly obvious that you can just sub Rodney Hood in, throw him in the corner for a possession, let Giannis do whatever he does in the paint, and you're either getting a dunk or an open three from Rodney Hood, and he's proved many times that he can make those threes. I think back to 2 years ago, maybe in that playoff game. It was Portland Denver when he was playing for Portland, and it went to like 5 overtimes, and Rodney had like 50 points or something like that. A lot of those came from the 3 point line, and I'm wondering if that's something that's a role that he can fill. Just catch and shoot. That's all you need to worry about on offense. Like he's not going to carry you or anything, but he's going to be there once Giannis gets those quadruple teams like he does every single time he has the ball.
Yeah, there are going to be some games I'm sure he puts up 20 points. Nobody says, where does this come from? But for the most part, I feel like if you can get 5 to 10 points from him, I think that's a win. Like
Yeah,
you said, when Giannis getting quadruple teamed, you got to just ease the pressure off however you can.
yeah. And then that brings us into the Timberwolves game. Who I know I was kind of interested in this game because the Timberwolves they start off hot. I mean, they do every year, but this team, Anthony Edwards is playing out of his mind right now. Carl Anthony Towns. He's going to get you the points. Excuse me. He's going to get you the rebounds. D'Angelo Russell. Who knows what you're going to get from passing the ball with him? But he's going to put up shots and he's going to score shots. And that's what happened against the Bucks. The Bucks came up flat, and they were chasing from behind the whole game. Come fourth quarter, the Bucks went on like a 10-2 run or something like that. I know they tied the game. I think they took a 1 point lead at the end there, and then it came down. Anthony Edwards closed the game. Is that something that needs to take notice, that a rookie closed the game against the defending champions?
I think personally for me, it's a completely different storyline. I think this is great. I love to see it in terms of, I mean, this team was down 20. Minnesota Timberwolves are making everything to start the game. I don't think people notice or know unless you have experience in basketball, which not trying to flex, but I do. I don't think people know the mental wear and tear that takes on a team. Like
Yeah,
just seeing everything go in and having to play from behind, even
that
though it's at
sucks.
home. And for them to come back and to your point, I mean, make it that close. Again, a thing not a lot of people realize that takes a hell of a lot of energy. And the reason why these comebacks are so rare is it's hard to keep that up. And so I'm looking at it. I'm loving that it was a 5 point loss. They shot 28% from three. Granted, Minnesota only shot 29% from three, but that's more in line with what we see from Minnesota than the Bucks. So it's not a great loss. You don't love to see it, but in terms of losses from the way it was going, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, and someone who obviously Giannis was the guy in this game for the Bucks, right? He put up his first 40-point game of the year. Um, it's still, I don't know about you, but as two people who lived through so many bad years of Bucks basketball up until maybe 4 years ago, I still get excited when I see a player put up more than 30 points, honestly. So to see Giannis come out 40 points, shoot 50% from three, 3 for 6, that's always encouraging. 16 rebounds. But this was a game that, we had just talked about. Chris Middleton was not hitting his threes. 1 for 8. Grayson Allen, 3 for 8. Pat Connaughton, 2 for 9 on threes. This was a game that we just talked about with Rodney Hood, and he came out 1 for 3 on threes with 13 minutes, 7 points. But Giannis's 40-point game, I think, especially with these rules, these new, not even rules, but these absence of rules where they're not calling fouls, they're not calling tic tac fouls, not letting players, get into guys and throw up a shot and get a foul. That I think that hurts Giannis's scoring potential, because if they're not calling fouls on Trae Young or calling fouls for James Harden, I find it very hard to believe they're going to call fouls for Giannis, even with them not already calling fouls for Giannis about 50% of the time when he goes to the lane. So is that something that we should look at, Trevor? Is Giannis kind of getting beat up a little bit here and not getting those foul calls?
It's interesting. I don't remember who posted it on Twitter, and obviously it's still super early, so take this kind of with a grain of salt. But to this point, I think the biggest winner from the new rules was Middleton. And Giannis, out of all the top guys from last year, Giannis actually went up like point 0.2 free throws a game, which isn't a lot. But to your point, I think it's going to become a problem as the season goes on. They're going to forget about these rules, right? This
Yeah,
is all just kind of a farce. But to your point about last game, I mean, dude's getting quadruple teamed. He shot 65% from the field, 50% from deep, but the rest of the team, 33% of the field, 24% from deep. So I mean, Giannis is getting beat up and nobody else is pitching in. I mean, no wonder why you're losing this game. So to lose by 5, again, drilling the point home, I'll take that.
right,
This team in the Michael Redd years would lose by probably 30 in those types of games.
right. Yeah, and I didn't get to watch a lot of this game, Trevor. We didn't get to watch a lot of this game. We're doing a fantasy football show. Tune in for that every Wednesday. Lombardi Sweep. If you're a Bucks fan, I'm sure you're a Packer fan. Tune in for that every Wednesday around 8 o'clock. We go live with two of our other comrades here at Fleury. But Giannis getting 40, great. Middleton getting 16, he's going to have his off nights. That's fine. 16 is still fine. Grayson Allen, 13, sure. But then you're only getting 15 points from the rest of the starters. I know it was a tough shooting, but I'm still in the boat that George Hill needs to keep shooting threes. He only took 3 threes this game. He led the league in 3-point percentage with the Bucks 2 years ago. Like, this guy's a decent shooter. I think he needs to be a little bit more aggressive, especially when he's getting 1 for 9 from Chris Middleton, 2 for 8 from Pat Connaughton, or whatever like that.
Yeah, I know Connaughton wants to shoot, but I mean, there's got to be a point where, as a veteran, you say, "Hey, like, let me take some more shots." Because Connaughton's a good shot. I mean, I don't know what got into him in the NBA Finals and
Yeah.
in the series against Brooklyn and Atlanta, but he looked like a complete different player. But it's just not falling. Give it to George Hill, the guy who I think 2 years ago led the league in 3-point percentage, if not last year too. I mean, might as well give him a run too. I feel like sharing the love on some of those deep threes a little more would be better. But then again, depending on how the Timberwolves are guarding, who's open, who's in the corner, sometimes that's tough to force as well. So it's tough, but you would like to see George Hill get more.
Yeah, and this was a game too that Bucks had 3 guys come back. Bobby Portis, Rodney Hood played again. We just talked about him, but Semi Ojeleye played his first game of the year. Bobby Portis played their first game of the year. Um, I I caught some of the highlights of the game. Like I said, before we didn't get to see a ton of the game, but this seems like another game to me, like Rodney Hood's first one, where they're kind of just easing guys back in. Bobby Portis, obviously, he went nuclear last year in the playoffs. Got his own chant and stayed with Milwaukee for less money, which is absolutely great. But is it did that seem this way to you, Trevor? That these guys are just kind of easing back and finding their shot, getting their role, playing defense a little bit, and just get out there running.
Yeah, no matter how Giannis or Chris wants to spin it with getting right back to it and doing it again, and I know that they mean it. It's still hard to get back, with that hangover of winning
Hmm.
a title, especially the first one in 50 years. So I would completely agree. Slowly get him along, because the worst thing that can happen now is Bobby Portis does something or somebody does something and now they're out for months. Now you only have a handful of weeks to get it together before the playoffs.
Right. And this is a game too. This and I had we were just talking about probably 10 minutes ago about kind of Thanasis and Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton guarding some big guys. I don't know about you, but I think the lack of interior defense depth is concerning to me. Because there's very well is games, and there has been games where Brook Lopez, you're not going to run him the whole first quarter or anything. You'll run him 5 minutes and get Bobby Portis whatever in there. But you do run Giannis a lot. You run Giannis almost 40 out of the 48 minutes. There's games where Giannis gets in foul trouble, and you got Brook Lopez out, and then who is going to get that interior defense? Bobby Portis is, God bless his heart, he's not that great on defense, and he's going to get bodied inside. They're missing that almost Robin Lopez type of player they had 2 years ago. So I don't know about you, but that concerns me just a little bit.
Yeah, and that just drills home, Sandro 6'9", 240, Semi's a big guy. You gotta get these guys to the point where they're able to play defense on some centers and do it effectively. If you can get these guys as, a poor man version of Draymond Green in the terms of can hold their own against a center, I think that does worlds of help. But, until then, they're going to continue to struggle, especially with Brook out. I think this shows us just how important Brook has been all these years.
Yeah, and I think that puts a little bit more pressure on the guards and the wings to kind of play a little bit more physical of defense. If you can get guards off of their shots, then you can kind of collapse and double team centers a little bit easier. So that physicality, I'd like to see a little bit more of. Once Brook Lopez comes back, he's monster defensively. I mean, it's like fucking shooting over a mountain when you go to the paint and throw up one of those floaters. So it'll be a nice sight to get Brook Lopez back and to get him in the paint and stop some of these big guys. Um, but speaking of big guys, Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think on both of our boards right now we have him top. We have him number one, if not top three for MVP voting. We take on one of these in my mind, who's playing one of the best players playing basketball right now is Rudy Gobert. He's playing very great basketball. We play him Sunday. Um, is that Rudy Gobert? He's kind of developed his offense game a little bit. He kind of came in from France as this big guy who can't really do much on offense, kind of a DeAndre Jordan type, young Dwight Howard kind of type of player. But he's developed that a little bit. I mean, it's easy to play with Donovan Mitchell, who can score anywhere on the floor. Mike Conley, who's great passing, just a great floor general. But I think that's the coming Sunday. That's the X factor in this game is, can you hold Rudy Gobert to 14 points, 10 rebounds? I think they do. I think if they do, the Bucks have a pretty good shot at taking down the last undefeated team on Sunday here.
Yeah, and I get Connaughton, I get all these guys on the center. I think this is a game you got to have Giannis on him, and
Yeah,
you just got to be smart with foul trouble because Giannis historically owns Gobert. Utah fans are going to be mad in my mentions, but I'm not wrong.
fuck
Look
them.
at the stats. Um, Giannis owns Gobert, and if he can just slow him down, Gobert's like you said, he's never really a big scorer, but if he can just even him out, I think the guards can do enough where Giannis can just own him on offense.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of going back to the MVP talk a little bit, and I know we titled this show as Giannis the front runner for MVP. I'll answer myself. I think for sure he is. He's definitely. I think he's past LeBron as the player that means the most to their team. And we saw it against Minnesota. Bucks were really kind of made that comeback. They're really kind of in that game because Giannis had those 40 points. Tough to rely on that every night, but at this point in his career, it almost seems like Giannis is going to get 30, 10, and 6. And I think that's what he's playing this year. Other players that come to mind that could challenge him. I just talked about Rudy Gobert, but I really like what Ja Morant's doing this year over at Memphis. I think he's leading the league in points right now, 31 or something like that. Um, Take away Steph Curry's fourth quarter is he's playing great basketball right now too. So in your mind, Trevor, who are these kind of contenders for MVP right now, and where do you have Giannis ranked on your list?
It's so tough. I'm glad you brought up Ja. I think Ja is definitely in the top three. He's shooting 10% better from the field than last year, from the field and from deep. Points per game is from 19 to 30. Outside of the game with 17, he had 30, 40, 28, 37. add 5 rebounds, 7 assists, almost 2 steals a game with that. Dude just on another level. And he leads the league in paint scoring, which is insane.
Yeah.
Um, Especially for a guy who's not only a point guard, but a 6'3" point guard at 174 pounds.
Hmm.
So I think he's definitely top 3. And you're looking at the shots he's taking. It's obviously a lot of the team is on him, but I mean, when when Giannis putting up 35, 11, 6, 1, and 2, I mean, it, I love him. Excuse me, 35 is his 3-point percentage. I was looking at it wrong. Still a little sick. Give me credit. But 27 or 28 still. I mean, what he's doing, all these injuries is showing you how important he is. I think he's 1. I think Morant is 2. 3, I think it's a little more clustered, but
Yeah.
I think those guys are top 2 for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's tough to stay on Bucks basketball here when there's so much basketball going on. There's not a lot, storylines. But Ja Morant, I think what his big thing coming out of the draft is everyone knew how explosive he was. Everyone saw the dunk he threw down on Joey Hauser in the NCAA tournament. Everyone knew that he could get to the paint. He could get there. He could finish, great finisher. But could he get that 3-point shot? And I think that's the problem with a lot of people right now, coming out of college. Young guys, if they can develop that three, they're going to be unstoppable. I mean, we heard about Giannis for the last 10 years now, but John Morant, to see how quickly he's gotten that 3-point shot has been really impressing me. But so we have a game again against the Spurs. It's funny how back to back weeks we're recording this, and the Bucks are playing the Spurs on that night. Um, it, I'm going to imagine our conversation doing the same thing as last week's, about are you concerned about this game, or what do you project to happen? But I don't see why this game would be any different than the game that we talked about 7 days ago.
Yeah, I don't see a reason either. Got a few more guys back, and we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a slow ramp up, kind of like last year. I think it's going to be frustrating for some people because last year, obviously, we had a whole new team. This year, we kind of have a whole new team too in terms of dynamics. But it's going to be one of those slow ramp ups. If they lose, would I be surprised? No. But I'd still, the line right now, Milwaukee by 7. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and this almost seems like a game where, maybe you don't run Giannis 40 minutes, you don't run Chris Middleton 42 minutes, because you have another game against a very tough opponent on Sunday with the Utah Jazz, who you may want to save some guys for, and you get that win, you kind of assert your dominance in the league. Say we're not going anywhere, we're still champions for a reason.
Yeah, and I mean, you're gonna need the run because they have plenty of depth. Donovan Mitchell's gonna run all over the place. Conley, all those guys, and that's gonna be on national TV. So you want to make somewhat of a statement, to your point. But yeah, I think this is kind of more of another one of those experimentation games. See what you can do. See what you can find out.
Yeah, especially against a good team. Good to run some lineups against a good team early in the season. See how they can play with a little pressure, especially on national TV. A lot of rookies come in not playing on national TV. I mean, Sandro, how many Seton Hall games were on ESPN or anything last year? So if he can get some run, I know he's a little banged up, but if he can get some run, it'd be nice. Just to get some of these guys out there and let them ball a little bit. Shout out to our guy Zach. He's on Fantasy Football Show with us, the Lombardi Sweep with us. Rudy Gobert is the most dangerous man the league has ever seen, and that's not reference into his play style. That's reference into how he single-handedly shut down the world with the COVID-19 2 years ago. And if you want to take part in making fun of Rudy Gobert like Zach does, we do have a shirt at Teespring. At Flurry, hop at Flurry Sports on Twitter. You'll be able to find it better than I'll tell you. But it's a Rudy Gobert cartoon that says Super Spreader under it. We would love to see all the Bucks fans wear that, and just show some love to Flurry Sports. Hey Randall, we're not dating. Thanks for telling us we look like a good couple. We just some bros talking basketball. But coming into next week, the Bucks got the Spurs, like we talked about, Jazz we just talked about. Pistons, Knicks. You know, they have 4 games in a week, which is always tough with the back-to-back. But after Sunday, they get a day. They only get one day off after 2 games, and they got a young Pistons team: Jeremy Grant, Kate Cunningham, Sadiq Bey. You know, kind of a team that might cause a little problem, be a little feisty, and run a little bit. And then they get 3 days off till a big Eastern matchup with the Knicks on Friday. Trevor, out of those, we just talked about the Spurs and the Jazz. So out of the Pistons, Knicks, which game are you looking more forward to watching this week?
I think the Knicks. The Knicks are an interesting team this year. They've been shot out of a cannon. They're 4-1, but I'm not impressed. Right? They beat the Celtics. Jason Tatum had his worst game probably in a long time. Barely beat them there. They beat the Magic, lost to the Magic. Okay, they beat the 76ers. They're not the 76ers from last year. They beat the Bulls, excuse me, not the Bills, the Bulls by 1. Bulls are a good team, but again, are they really anything special outside of a 6 or 7 seed this year? No. So I think that's going to be an interesting game. And also looking at the Knicks schedule right here, that's going to be the first real test, in my opinion, for the Knicks,
Yeah,
right? Like they had Philly at home. They're playing at New Orleans right now, Toronto at Indiana. I mean that Indiana's a solid team, but the Bucks is going to be their first real test. I want to see how they play Giannis because I don't think they have the size to. And if Mitchell Robinson gets in foul trouble, I mean it's game over.
yeah. Mitchell Robinson went down in that Bulls game. He had a little bit of an injury. I don't know if that'll play a factor into this game at all. But just to hop on the other side of you here, Trevor, I'm excited to watch the Pistons. You know, I just talked about their young guys. As you watch Cade Cunningham in college, he kind of carried that Oklahoma State team to, a deep Big 12 tournament run. Um, they have guys that can play. You know, Jeremy Grant was on the Olympic team. So I'm just excited to see, do the Bucks are the Bucks getting are they full of veterans that can't run, or do they have are these young guys going to show up that are able to run? Cade Cunningham it's his third, I think it's his second or third game that this will be, so I'm sure he's going to come out, jacking shots and just seeing what he can do. But it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting for me to see. I think this is a game that Justin Robinson will get a lot of run just because he's young. He can keep up and kind of run a little bit with them. You know, Pistons aren't a great team by any means, so it wouldn't surprise me if Justin Robinson came out and started jacking shots or come off pick and rolls and trying to throw one-handed passes across the court or anything like that.
Yeah, and the Pistons are one of those teams, looking at the East, I can see this team, it's going to be an interesting East shakeup now with the Bulls obviously being better and Wizards looking better. We still have a lot of stuff to figure out, but Pistons can definitely be one of those teams. If they are an 8 or a 7 seed, I can see them being a team that's going to steal a game, maybe even 2 in the first round. To your point, they got a good team. I mean, Grant is a very underrated player. Cade Cunningham, we still got to see what he does, but I feel like his game has to translate at least somewhat. So,
Right.
that's going to be an interesting game. But, if Giannis is across from him, he might be seeing ghosts because that's going to be a tough third assignment.
It's gonna be a great welcome to the NBA rookie kind of game for the Bucks, right? But that's all that I have on the docket. I mean, we'll talk about some underdog picks here in a little bit. But Trevor, is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of Bucks basketball last week, this week, anything like that?
For me, I think it would just have to be, like kind of always. It's probably how it always will be, beating a dead horse. But Giannis and his shooting this year, from the field, 52%, or excuse me, that is last 10 games. Yeah, 52%, a little lower, but you're looking at his 3-point percentage, 35. I mean, that is perfect. That is right where you want it. It's nothing crazy, but you don't need him for anything crazy. 35 is plenty. Seeing he usually shoots about 28 in free throw percentage. Not much, but that 2% from 71 to 73, that'll win you some games. And, where he is right now, I mean, points is up, rebounds up, assists up. Just on a different level, but with that shooting, it's going to be so much harder to guard him.
For sure, and that's just adding another layer. Like like me and Zach talked about, I forget about which team, maybe the Bills, that on football where they can kind of attack teams at all three levels. They can run the ball, they can hit short, hit mid, hit long, whatever. Giannis getting that shot, that's attacking at all three levels because he's been known to take, sit there and dribble a little bit and pull up for a mid-range jumper. Everyone's like, no, no, what are you shooting? It goes in and go, oh yeah, nice shot, man. And we know he's going to get his in the paint, and so to see that shooting still come, be great sight to 35%, like you said, is good. Be great to see that pop up to 37.5 to 40% somewhere in there. But that's asking for a lot from a guy who's relied on to score, 25 to 25 plus points a game.
And
But
like you said earlier, real quick, that'll stop him from getting beat up as much if he can hit
right,
those.
right. Maybe that'll help him get a couple more calls too. But who knows what's going on with the calls this year? But that brings us into our underdog picks of the night. We don't have them all week. We just have set spread set for tonight against the Spurs. Right now they have Giannis 31.5. Trevor, what are you doing with that? Over or under?
He's averaging 27.6. Let me see. Against San Antonio at 21, and he played 30 minutes. I'd go under. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores over 31 and a half, but, I can see him playing a little more limited minutes. Like you said, with Utah coming up, I think other guys are going to start to see their shot fall. I think that makes his a little lower as assist totals go up. So I'll say under.
I'm in the same boat with you. And, Popovich is a good enough coach to know that they have to stop Giannis for the Spurs to win. So I'm sure they're going to throw some guys at him, get him to the line a little bit, play a little physical, get him off his game. And this seems like a game where Budenholzer's going to want to run Giannis a little bit against the Jazz, see what he's doing. So I'm agreeing with you. I'll agree with you on the under of 31.5. I'd put him at, 26 points maybe for my prediction. But that leads us into his 13.5 rebounds over under.
That's pretty high for a guy averaging 11.6. I'd
Mm-hmm.
go under. 13 and a half is always pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, I would only go under on like a Clint Capella type guy. So I'll go under on that.
Yeah, and I think of course Giannis is going to have to play that big guy role, and he's going to be collecting rebounds. But it depends how much time he gets. But like you said, 13.5 is a lot of rebounds. You're happy if a guy gets 9 rebounds, and we're asking him to get 4.5 more. That's a lot in my eyes. So I will. Honestly, I wouldn't touch this, but I will go with the under on it because this could really go either way to me. So we said under for Giannis on points. That brings us to Chris Middleton at 23.5. And I can run first in this one, Trevor. I think if I'm taking the under on Giannis, I think I'm taking the over on Chris Middleton because one of them needs to score 25 to 30 if the Bucks want to, kind of assert the dominance and be like, yeah, we're that team. We're going to repeat here. So I think Giannis sees a little bit of less run. Chris Middleton, I think he sees his normal run. He's going to throw up shots if Giannis isn't getting his run. So I'll take the over just on volume alone.
Yeah, and using last game as reference, he had 28. And he shot only 2 for 7 from deep. 9 for 17 from the field, but only 2 for 7 from deep. Got 9 free throws to fall to, or 9 free throws, 8 to fall to. So he's got a pretty stable floor there. I'll go over as well. To your point, if Giannis is under, Middleton's almost a guarantee for the over.
Yeah. Another guy who plays a little bit of who was starting for the Bucks, plays some factors in shooting threes. We'll go 2 for 1 here to end the show. Grayson Allen, 2.5 3-pointers made and 12.5 points. I think if you're taking the over on 2.5 threes, I think you might want to take the over on 12.5 points. I think these kind of go hand in hand with me.
Yeah, he took 11 shots and 8 threes their last meeting. Overall, how many is he? He's at 13 and 19 the past 2 games, 10 against San Antonio, 14 against Miami. I think you go over too, and I think you go over on both. He has not been great from deep to start. Last 2 games has been a little better, but I think one of these games he catches fire, and this just seems like a good game for that.
Right, and especially if you're taking the over on 2.5 threes, that means he's making 3 threes at least. That's 9 points. That means you have to find 4 points somewhere else, and you got to think, in a 48-minute game, 2 baskets is doable for a starting caliber NBA player, right? But to close out the show, we'll do a preview into the Spurs. We'll give our picks over under. I think the over under I have it here at 223.5 with the Bucks -7. Trevor, I know you said you'd take the Bucks -7 here. I think I'm in the same boat with you. This is a game. This is gonna be a game where role players step up, and I do think that the Bucks role players outplay, Spurs starters. Maybe outside Dejounte Murray, Keldon Johnson is gonna do whatever Keldon Johnson does, but Bucks just have a better team than the Spurs, and I do think that they beat them by 7, especially coming off of a pretty tough week last week where they saw a loss against the Timberwolves.
Yeah, if I had to give a score, I'd go pretty close to their last meeting. Last time it was 121, 111. This time I'd probably go 120, 105, 106. I mean, that just seems like the type of game this should be, especially if they can just hit anything more than what? I mean, they hit 43% of their threes that game, but really the normal guys for threes weren't there. So, I think you take the Bucks on the spread, and then I would take the over too. I mean, under in the NBA is such a risky call, anyways.
Yeah, especially with the the Bucks haven't played in a while here, and probably going to come out and run, throw up some shots right away, get back in the groove of it. You make a couple of those, and the over probably hits for the first quarter. Over hitting for the first quarter is pretty good indication that the over is going to hit for the game. So I'm with you on that, Trevor. I'll throw my score around somewhere 122 to 110, somewhere in that range. I think if definitely if both teams are scoring over 100 by middle of the fourth quarter, it seems like this over is going to hit a little bit. But that's all I got. Trevor, anything else you want to talk about?
Not from me.
Cool.
I apologize. Next week I'll try to be healthy, 100%.
We're in the same boat here, brother. But thanks to everyone who watched. Like I said before, if you're a Bucks fan, you're probably a Packers fan. We got Lombardi Sweep every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. We have a fantasy football show before that, 7 o'clock Central Time. You're a Packer fan, you probably play fantasy football. You play fantasy football, you probably want to win. You will win if you listen to our show. And that's all I got. Go Bucks. Hopefully we see a 4-0 week next time we talk. But that's it. That's BuckShots for this week, and we will see everyone next Saturday around this time.
Later.